Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you much for the introduction. As introduced, my name is Sam Twala, founder and managing director of INTSU Aviation Solutions and INTSU Drone Academy. What I would like to do before I start with my presentation, I just have this video, it's less than a minute. If you can just take a look.
Is there a sound to it, Sam? Because we can't hear it. Sam, does your video have a sound or is it just the video?
All right. Fantastic. Thank you very much. I will talk about that video in a second. Maybe let me start here. Just a quick introduction about myself. By training, I'm an electronic engineer, and then I also did a master's in aviation with Massey University in New Zealand. And just briefly, I did a little bit work in engineering, in electro-optics, and briefly, that would be about 4 years or so. I worked for Civil Aviation Authority, South African Civil Aviation Authority. First 2 years as a certification engineer, and then the last 2 years as an unmanned aircraft systems specialist. I also have a bit of an experience in air traffic management system, as I worked as a senior communication navigation surveillance system at Air Traffic and Navigation Services. While I was at Civil Aviation Authority, I had a privilege of participating at two most important international forums, if I can put it that way, in drone technology. One being International Civil Aviation Organization, and the other one being JAROS. That is back in 2013 until 2016. All right. So the video that you just saw now, this was the very last flight that we did for Civil Aviation Authority. My apologies for the video. The quality of my video I see is not so perfect. That was a last flight when we were demonstrating the capability of blood deliveries to the Civil Aviation Authority, because I worked together with South African National Blood Services when they were pioneering this project. They've been in this project for quite a while. They only managed to get their certification very recently, a few months ago. Now, the significance of this operation, or at least the certification through Civil Aviation Authority, it was quite important, because this was first in the country, right? This has never been done before. And never been done, I'll be combining two things, one being a drone delivery, secondly being applying or using drones in healthcare. So because this was the first of its kind, the eyes that we had on this project and the level of attention from the Civil Aviation Authority to make sure that they go through this project and make sure that everything has been looked at, all the risks have been considered, and then they've looked at all those in detail. So what you're looking at here, those were the images that we took throughout the process. So just want to do this way. Sorry about that. There's a little bit of a background noise here. All right. So the drone itself is able to carry about 4 units of blood, and the travel distance that has been approved for now is drone can operate up to 12 kilometers. And what was quite interesting was throughout the process, there were more than 10 inspectors who were involved in this project. And the reason being, I would actually call this project one of the first, or let me say, when you look at aviation risk, this application has been, I would put it up there as far as the highest risk that you can think of in aviation, in a drone application, simply because of the type of the kind of distance, and then the area where the application is in a built-up area. And then the type of airspace, likely where we decided to start was outside of a controlled airspace, to at least make sure that the risk to other airspace users was minimized to a greater extent. So that's where we started. Then maybe just to talk a little bit about ourselves as Aviation Solutions, we started, or as a company where we started, we were in consulting. That would be the compliance. And secondly, when any organization, they're looking at getting into drone technology, one of the biggest challenges that they would have is once you get into drone technology, one way or the other, you are getting into aviation. However, most people who get into drone technology don't really have much aviation experience, and they need someone to hold their hand and be able to understand their requirements, understand their technology, understand what's the intentional, what's their use, and then be able to translate that into aviation language. So that's what I've been doing for more than 4 years. And then we also got into a drone operations management tool. The reason for that is it's time where we now need to digitize how we do things. To a greater extent, where the industry started, we understood things from a manned aviation point of view, and there's really little digitization, including automation in manned aviation. And for drone technology to work efficiently, we need to move as far as we can in digital airspace, in digital space. And then we also involved in selling drones, including training that will be training of pilot qualification, which is one of the requirements, at least in South Africa, for one to get involved in commercial operation. And to date, we have delivered about 25 ROCs. ROC, that would be your ARPA's operator certificate, which is a license that you need for one to be able to operate drones commercially in South Africa, and we have about 24. Maybe just to give you an idea, all in all, we have about just above 90 operators which have been approved. And what we managed to do as well is we managed to assist the first government department to get their license, which is the Western Cape Emergency Services. And if you look at the type of work that they do in Cape Town, especially in Table Mountain, it's been unparalleled. Including the municipality, we managed to get the first municipality through the process, including the medical deliveries, which is what I was talking about. Now, the reason why I'm highlighting this too is what I see quite a lot in South Africa, including most African countries, what you see a lot would be the drone technology adoption in private sector. It's been on quite a good trajectory from the beginning until so far. But for some reason, one way or the other, in government departments, there's always a talk of the benefits and the use of drone technologies, but the uptake within the government departments, it's for some reason it's quite slow, which is something that sometimes really surprises me. Now, what I would want to highlight with this slide is this concept. Back in the days while I was still at ICAO, which is International Civil Aviation Organization, in 2013 or so, there's always been this notion and this saying that the drone market is expected to grow faster in Africa than in any other continent across the globe. And then if you look at the image that I have on my slide here, there's that projection, the growth of drone industry, like between 2018 and then 2025. And you can see the difference that the growth is quite significant. To a greater extent, you can go as far as saying almost 4 times, right? But the question that I always have is, in real value, in real benefits, in African continent, are we really exploiting or exploring drone technology and reaping benefits as we supposed to be, as everyone else has expected that to be? And the question to that is, well, the answer to that question, to me, it's not so straightforward, it's not so clear, but in my mind, we are not doing that. And one of the biggest challenges why we are not able to do that is, I explain it with this slide, where I say there's always this conundrum between drone regulations, operations, and traffic management, right? Where you'd have your concept of operation on the left, and then in the middle you have your concept of regulation, and then on the right here at the bottom right you have what I call traffic management. Now the key, it doesn't really matter exactly where you are in it. How do you get to harness and benefit as much as you can from drone technology? That would be if your concept of operation, your concept of regulation, and concept of traffic management, there's harmony between those three pillars. And harmony, what I mean with that is what the industry is attempting or trying to achieve with drone technology. Regulations must be in a position to enable it. But just saying enable might not be adequate, because the regulators, they also have a duty, they also have a mandate, which is regulating the use, regulating in aviation to make sure that whatever aviation activities that we have, they are done safely. However, then on the far right, you have traffic management. The bottom line is, of which we may have debates and questions to say, you have air traffic management in a sense of traditional aviation, and then we have unmanned traffic management. That conversation has always been there, but how I would like to look at it at this point is, we have one airspace, and drones need, one way or the other, they need to have access to airspace. And how you get to access the airspace, that must be enabled through regulations. And that need to access airspace in a certain way, certain time, in a certain time, within a certain period, that will then be dictated by how people want to operate drones, which is the concept of operation. So which is why I was saying there must always be that harmony between what the industry is looking for, what is it that they want to do. Regulations should be able to enable that to as much as possible, and then the access to airspace, it must be possible at the same time. When it comes to regulations, there has been progress to a greater extent across the globe, and the most progressive way of regulating drones has been to come up with categorization that we see a lot in European countries, where there's open categories, specific and certified categories. And the reason for that, for coming up with this categorization, started from the fact and the idea that regulating drones cannot follow the very same principle and concepts as how manned aviation has always been regulated. The most important approach or change or shift in thinking is, with the drones, the regulation must be operation-centric. Operation-centric regulations must be operation-centric in the sense that you are looking at aviation risk, and then you regulate from the risk. If this operation poses little to or negligent aviation risk, the amount of rules and regulations that one has to go through until they get the approval would certainly be different, or should be different, compared to the operation where the aviation risk is high. So that's what is the basis of that categorization. And then with concept of operation, the most important thing is, drones, number one, are not equal. Two, you could have one and the same drone. However, the application could be different, right? Using the very same drone. Right? So that's where the complexity, as a matter of fact, starts from. Right? From the operators, they come up with innovative ideas every day. They and innovation, the pace innovation in drones is very quick. But so what I indicated earlier, that there must always be a harmony between what industry is intending to achieve, the regulations, including the access to airspace. It means when the technology advances, it gets better. Regulations must do the same. The means to get to access to airspace must be the same. So that harmony must always exist. Now, this is one of the picture that was drafted at ICAO years ago. Yes, it's a little bit different now, but the reason why I have this one here is because it's a little bit dramatic. in a sense that when you look at traffic management architecture, there's a lot that is involved, right? You would have your operators, you would have your supplemental data service providers, that whether that be your weather data or your ground hazards. Then you have your traditional NSPs, right? That would be your traffic and navigation services. Now, the significance of this slide, I'm not trying to get into it and try to explain this slide, but what I'm trying to explain or take from this slide is the air traffic management can be complex, can be very complicated. But what becomes very important is you as maybe let's say a particular country, you're not going to try and take this structure as is and try to do copy and paste. What is important, the implementation, how the access to airspace will be managed will differ from one country to the other. The reason why it will differ from one country to the other is because drone use and drone uses differ from one country to the other. We don't have one size fits all as compared to main aviation. You will find that for some countries, you would need a relatively complex operation to facilitate the access to airspace. And then there are those countries where, if you compare with manned aircraft, the activities, the movements might be much, much lesser, to a point where the air traffic management could be defined as just connecting with air traffic controller through a defined means, which might be as simple as you have an application that is running on your cell phone, you make a request to air traffic controller, they give you an access, and then you continue. Whereas you might find that in a very complex airspace, right, that might not be adequate. Depending on where you fly, right, that will also be quite important. So in closing, the most important things that I would want to mention in this stage is enabling regulatory environment. It's very much important to make sure that we harness the use of drone technology and make sure that we reap as much benefits as possible. And that can only be possible if there's an enabling air traffic and management system. And again, the most important element is the importance of public and private collaboration. This is super, super important because you may find that when you work with government departments, one of the most important stakeholder here being Civil Aviation Authority, including air traffic and navigation services, to be able to put up the infrastructure, it may tend to be quite an expensive exercise. And to a greater extent, over and above that, the mandate that they have, you're adding drones. And we all understand that drones come up with different complexities and different requirements. So it becomes quite important as well that there's that partnership to make sure that there's a balance, especially when it comes to being able to make sure that we end up with the best solution. And then a need to digitize drone operations. For drones to be adopted in numbers, it's only possible if you are running on a digital platform. And then one thing that I must say, which is quite obvious at this stage, is that drones play a major role in the next industrial revolution. And the coordination between different government departments, super important. Whereas previously you find that drones or aviation has always resided under Department of Transport. Whereas when you look at where drones are used today, they are used in almost any industry, which now it means when you look at the national policies, you look at how to integrate drones, the conversation extends beyond Department of Transport. And then obviously the most important thing is a clear national drone agenda. You may find that what is of immediate use and need in South Africa, it might be a little bit different to all other neighboring countries and any other countries across the globe. So each and every country is quite important that you have your own national agenda, that's what I call it. And then preparing obviously for future jobs today, that talks to data-driven industries, and that may talk about, there has a strong reference to training and to that extent. And then with economics as well, we're now looking at new way of doing things. which then talks to new jobs, new opportunities, and then benefits. And then one thing when it comes to drones, as is now, it's a fact that the drone industry is yet to attain mass adoption. We are just at the beginning. Things are going to get better and better as time goes on. Thank you very much. That would be all from my side at this stage. I'm not sure if there might be any questions.